Picture a man right now. Maybe it's you, sitting alone in his living room at 10 at night on an ordinary Tuesday. Nobody's asking him where the remote went. Nobody's complaining the dinner got cold. No doors slamming down the hallway. The house is silent, and he's okay with that. Or at least, that's what he tells himself. I'm Mike, and today we're stepping into the mind of the older Gen X man who lives alone. What his daily life looks like, how he ended up there, and whether he's truly at peace with it, or just performing peace so well, even he can't tell the difference. Right now, roughly 2 out of 3 single midlife men in the U.S. live alone, according to research from a major family studies center using recent census data. Narrow that to men in their 50s, and about 4 in 10 of those living alone have never been married. Not divorced, not widowed, simply never married. In 1970, only around 7% of midlife adults had never tied the knot. By 2020, that number was nearly 29%, a 4-fold jump in 50 years. So what does an ordinary day look like? It depends who you ask. They're not all cut from the same cloth. But many have built a routine so functional that outsiders mistake it for loneliness. Coffee made exactly the way he likes it. He checks his phone, not for a partner's text, but for news or a group chat with friends he's known since school. He goes to work, or if retired, has a project, the garage, a side hustle, a YouTube rabbit hole about old engines or history. Dinner happens whenever he wants. There's no schedule but the one he set himself. People on the outside see a man missing something, but plenty of these guys aren't wondering where their life went. They're doing exactly what they want, with nobody to negotiate with. The house is his. The silence is his. For some, that quiet is the first real stillness they've had in decades. There's more than one road to this address. Some men never married, and it wasn't a wound or a statement. They simply didn't. Maybe they were chasing a career, or in long relationships that never tipped into a wedding. Research from a major polling organization found that by 2019, nearly 4 in 10 men aged 25 to 54 were unpartnered, up sharply from 3 decades earlier. The longer that goes on, the more life reshapes itself around solo living. You build a life that fits one person. Then someone asks, so why didn't you ever get married? Like he owes an explanation. Then there's the man who was married, and it ended. He's alone now, and the research here is rough. Studies cited in psychology publications found unmarried men in their 40s and 50s are several times more likely to die by suicide than married men or unmarried women the same age. And divorced men specifically face dramatically higher risk than divorced women. Researchers point to one reason. Many men build their entire social world around their partner. She kept the friendships alive, planned the gatherings, remembered the birthdays. When the marriage ends, that infrastructure collapses like a house missing its main support beam. He's not just losing a wife, he's losing the person who connected him to everyone else. That's the split. The never married man who learned solitude years ago, and the divorced man learning it for the first time at 52. But there's a third group rarely discussed: gay Gen X men. Older LGBTQ+ adults are roughly twice as likely to live alone and far more likely to have no children. Many came of age during the AIDS crisis, losing entire friend circles in their 20s and rebuilding from nothing. Some live alone not by choice, but because the people they expected to grow old with didn't make it. A recent national survey found nearly half of this group reported feeling lonely, higher than the average for their age. Is the man who lives alone simply an introvert? People assume so, but the data tells a messier story. A recent survey on Gen X men and friendship found the overwhelming majority said friendship is essential to a happy life. So it isn't that they don't value people, it's how they connect, or fail to. Men were far less likely than women to volunteer, attend gatherings, or join community groups. The friendships they do keep were described by researchers as high passion, low vulnerability. Hours of sports and politics, but no mention that they haven't had a real conversation with anyone in over a week. Many have kept the same friends for 20 or 30 years, but they don't call. They don't text beyond logistics. Researchers put it simply. Men tend to connect shoulder to shoulder, doing things together. Women connect face to face, talking things through. Both are valid, but when you live alone and your shoulder-to-shoulder friend is 3 states away, that bond quietly fades into a group chat nobody reads. So, are they lonely? Some are. A recent report found over 40% of men 45 and older now report feeling lonely, up sharply from less than a decade ago. And men in their late 40s and 50s are hit harder than men in their 60s and 70s. But here's the twist. Loneliness tends to decline with age. The man struggling at 53 might feel entirely different at 67. Not a guarantee, but a pattern researchers have tracked for over a decade. This is where the stereotype falls apart. People imagine a guy slumped on a couch in the dark. But many of these men have hobbies that swallow entire weekends and need no audience. Woodworking, restoring an old car, cooking an elaborate meal for one without apologizing for it, fishing at dawn, lifting weights at a gym where he knows nobody's name and prefers it that way, playing guitar in a room where nobody tells him to turn it down, growing more tomatoes than one man could eat, and quietly giving the surplus to neighbors he barely speaks to. These men tend to split into 2 camps. One fills every waking hour with motion, work, projects, the gym, because stillness makes him uneasy. The other sits with silence, like an old friend, reading, watching a documentary, staring out a window and calling it thinking. Both are managing the same thing, a life with no built-in accountability. For some, that freedom is the entire point. For others, it's what slowly unravels them. Does he love this life or hate it? Honestly, for most, it's both. On a quiet Saturday with good weather and a game on, he's the ruler of a kingdom built for one. No arguments about the thermostat or whose turn it is to take out the trash. He wouldn't trade it for anything. But there's the other side he never posts about. A worrying medical result with no one in the waiting room. A holiday that passes without a call. The moment before sleep when the house creaks and there's no one to ask, "Did you hear that?" That's where being alone and feeling alone stop being the same thing. Many of these men spent so many years practicing independence that they don't know how to ask for company anymore. Asking for help feels like failure, and failure was never allowed in the house they grew up in. A recent well-being survey found roughly 6 in 10 Gen X adults qualify as lonely, higher than the generation before them. And these are people who, on paper, look completely fine. Steady jobs, paid-off cars, full routines. The loneliness doesn't look like loneliness. It looks like a man who's simply busy, doing fine, who doesn't need anything from anybody. And if you push him on it, he'll change the subject to last night's game. He grew up in an era when self-reliance wasn't encouraged, it was required. You figured things out yourself. You didn't ask for directions, literally or emotionally. That wiring doesn't vanish at 55. It runs underneath everything. It's why he can live alone for 15 years and genuinely believe nothing's wrong. And why, when something actually is wrong, he still won't pick up the phone. Research on male friendship found these bonds often last 20 years or more, but the connection itself isn't maintained. The line just goes quiet, not because anyone stopped caring, but because nobody taught them how to keep it alive. Women tend to call, just to check in. Men wait for a reason, and sometimes years pass without one. He isn't broken. He's built, assembled by a specific set of circumstances, And every part of how he moves through life reflects that. He can fix a leaking pipe, manage his own finances, cook himself a proper meal, and go weeks without one meaningful conversation, and call all of it freedom. Maybe it is, but freedom without connection has a shelf life. And at some point, the real question stops being, do you enjoy living alone? And becomes, does anyone actually know you're here? If you're the guy on the couch right now, house quiet, watching this, I'm not going to tell you to join a kickball league. That's not your speed. But call that friend you haven't spoken to in 3 years. Not because anything's wrong, just because 3 years is too long. One call. See what happens. Because the person on the other end is probably sitting in a quiet house too. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.